All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Our first recap is the Illinois and Northwestern game. Illinois really took it to 30-point victory for them. That's huge. In Illinois, they just looked like they were completely in rhythm in this one. Looked like a great game for them. Brad Underwood really had his guys humming. Just a very, very impressive win, especially against a team like Northwestern, who was able to take down Purdue earlier this year. For Illinois to do that by the substantial margin that they did, it was really, really cool to see for them. Sonny, I know you're fired up about this game. What are some of your thoughts?
It's been a rough week to 10 days for Illinois basketball off the court, but with our last three games, we played two of our three biggest rivals, and Missouri game we won by 24 points. The game was never really close, and we were riding pretty sky high at that point. Shortly thereafter, the news about Terrance Shannon came out. And so Illini Nation is kind of looking around, trying to figure out, hey, how does the dynamic of this team change when your best player is gone? What we've essentially responded with two games where we're averaging 100 points a game. Fairleigh Dickinson, sure, we should have cleaned up anyway, but against Northwestern, we're only 5.5 point favorites. Obviously, Northwestern beat Purdue, as you mentioned earlier. And this game was never really close. It was 7-0 right off the bat for Illinois. Northwestern, Boo Buie had 20 points, but that was basically it. I had a post-game pod about this game yesterday, and it was probably the shortest episode I've ever made because literally all I could say was everyone had a good game. Because everyone had a good game. Domask had 32 points, and this guy is, in my opinion, the best from 5 to 18-foot shooter in all of college basketball. He had 32 points and only one 3-pointer from those 32 points. It's Coleman Hawkins right now. I know he gets talked about on the show on occasion. He seems like he's fully healthy, and over the last 4 or 5 games, if he's playing the way he is, I think Illinois can compete with anybody in this conference. And all in all, it's a nice. We start off the Big Ten in a pretty tough stretch. Having Northwestern, who many peg to finish, I've seen as high as 4th, but for the most part, consistently in the top half. Friday night, of course, it's going to be Illinois against Purdue, and then we follow that game up with a Michigan State team that looks like it's turning things around. So, getting the first win, under your belt without your star player, it's nice and refreshing. But to have a 30-point win over your rival, we feel pretty good right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was a great game to watch. The entire time I was watching that game, it just looked like Illinois was in some kind of rhythm. It looked like there was like music playing in the background or something, and they were just, they were in some kind of rhythm, dancing together, whatever you want to call it. And it was really, really fun to watch. And I've been critical of Illinois in a few ways earlier this year, but I tell you, I don't really think I can come away with anything super critical in that game. They were humming. They looked really, really nice. It was a great night for the home court advantage for them as well. I don't have anything bad to say about Illinois. I have plenty of bad things to say about Northwestern's defense. But at a certain point, it's like, maybe that's just because Illinois has that good of an offense. Gabriel, what were some of your thoughts on the Illinois Northwestern game?
I don't think you could be too harsh on Northwestern. They just faced a really good Illinois team that had an extra motivating factor. Let's just call it that for now. But for Northwestern, I still like this team. I think they're a scrappy team and they're a dangerous team that can definitely beat anyone in the Big Ten on a given night. So just the fact that Illinois was able to show that level of dominance yesterday against what I still consider a good Northwestern team, I think that bodes well. And Northwestern, they have a couple of things that they need to clean up. One person I like watching players that come off the bench to see how they do. And Martinelli, he just does all the right things consistently all the time. And if he's able to step up and be a consistent contributor off the bench, look out for Northwestern.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking about guys coming off the bench, Luke Goody, he started off the bench earlier this season. Now he's in the starting lineup, and it was a really good performance from him, especially early on in the game. So that was obviously positive for Illinois fans to see. We'll talk a little bit later about filling those starter roles with Terrance Shannon Jr. out. But before we get to that, I do want to hear our man Tricky's thoughts on the Northwestern Illinois game.
Well, you and Sonny, JR, mentioned just the fluidity of the offense there with Illinois, and that's something I'm very envious of after watching the first third of the season with Maryland. We have a problem with finding our place on the court, both on offense and defense. So to see a team like Illinois, who, regardless of who they put out there, each player knew their role and played it perfectly within what seems to be a very good offensive system. And it helps out on defense. They're not a bad defensive team, but much of it is set up by their offense. And you mentioned Domask only taking 1 3-pointer. You went 10 of 18 from 3-point line, did your Illini, Sonny. And that's another thing that I'm envious of. And if you listen to the little get-together I had with the guys from Purdue before our game, I mentioned that about our club, that when we can't make the three, we just keep shooting it. Where in your case, Sonny, your guy takes a few steps in, hits the 15, 18-foot jumper. We don't attempt shots from in there. It's either in the paint or from behind the arc. And it shows the weakness on our team. And I would much rather be playing in a system like what Illinois is doing right now. And they look really formidable. I mean, if they can get that many contributions by that many players and everybody playing selfless, they look tough to beat. And I can't wait to see them play Purdue myself. You can take a guess as to who I'll be rooting for in that matchup.
I was going to say, I feel like you're going to be an Illini fan Friday night, right, Tricky?
Oh, always have been. Yes. We are the number one Illini supporting podcast in the state of Maryland over there at the Turtlehead, at least whenever playing Purdue.
That's a new award we can give you, the number one Illini supported podcast in Maryland. I like it. I like it.
Stay tuned for the testes. That may be a category.
There we go. Now, obviously, Sonny, you had some issues with the past couple podcasts we've had on here. I've had some of my my good guests on, but you felt like there was not enough recognition for Brad Underwood and for the Illini team. And I got to be honest, after some of the stuff that's been going on with this Northwestern game and the other two games, I think you got some room to talk. So it's my turn to give you the floor and tell us why we have been so wrong lately on your Fighting Illini.
Now, JR, take this as a compliment. I tune into Big Ten Huddle as often as I can, so I just happen to always, keep an ear out for the Illini takes, and it just so happens I tend to disagree with every single one on the show. So that's why I had to speak up at one point. I will give you credit. You're right in the sense that the last couple episodes that I've had an issue with, like, you were the nicest when it came to Illinois, but for me, it's I don't know if it's because you've had a lot of Purdue guests on over the last month because they've got so many.
Yeah.
I don't understand the picture that's painted about Matt Painter as opposed to Brad Underwood. Brad Underwood, his conference record at Stephen F. Austin was 53-1. Okay, he left Stephen F. Austin. He took over a 12-20 Oklahoma State team and took him to 20-12 in 1 year. He got hired by Illinois. First 2 years, we struggled, but we were a bad Illinois team because of the John Broche era. We don't want to talk about that. A very dark era in the Illinois history. He took his press system, realized as a coach that it does not work at a Power 5 level, changed it around completely, and over the last 5 years, no coach has won more games in the Big Ten than Brad Underwood. I think there was a guest on your last week's podcast who was like, how can Matt Painter win Coach of the Year? I don't understand. Well, I just gave you the stat about Brad Underwood winning, 57 games over the last 5 years in the Big Ten. He's won a conference tournament. He's won the conference title. He's never won the conference Coach of the Year. Early on, he built his teams around guards. We had the Io and Trent Frazier. Then Io graduated, and we switched to building our team from the inside out with Kofi. These are all adjustments that this guy was making. And I know the cultural stuff was kind of brought up lately, and to me, it really doesn't make sense because if you look back, the only team that really has had cultural issues in his tenure at Illinois was last year's team. Last year's team, 2 years ago, we had the top-ranked recruiting class in the Big Ten, and it was top, I think, 6 or 7 in the country. It had a couple former 5 stars, a couple 4 stars. And last year, it didn't work out because you kind of see what kind of baggage comes with those 4 and 5 stars. It's not that I saw it. Someone else saw it, and that's Brad Underwood. This year, he's made a complete different strategy. He's brought in guys like Justin Harmon from Utah Valley, Marcus Domask from Southern Illinois. He's a guy who, in my opinion, is almost underrated at this point because we just talk about, him not making the Sweet 16. But then, we talk about Matt Painter, who's lost to a 13 seed, a 15 seed, and a 16 seed in consecutive years. So for me, I guess you can say I kind of got triggered last week, because I think this year he's been doing a fantastic job. Our 2 losses was to Marquette, a very veteran team in our 4th game of the season, whereas we have like a lot of new guys we're introducing to the rotation. Second game we lost to was Tennessee, which on a good night, they can win the national championship. We played that game in Knoxville. And, I know you mentioned a couple of times that, it seemed like the team was off in the second half. But keep in mind, we lost that game. The spread was 7.5. We lost it by 7. We covered the spread. And that's with our best player, Terrance Shannon, going for something like 2 for 11, 2 for 12. The team never gave up. And, as, we kind of talked about earlier today, the last 3 games, the team is just in sync. We're playing great defense. Brad Underwood, again, that strategy shift that he's made towards bringing in veterans, guys who aren't looking forward to their college future and, the points and whatever, the name on the back of the jersey. They know it's their last year in college. So what they're doing is they're playing for the team with the name in front of the jersey. And in a big picture, that's a credit to Brad Underwood. He's the guy who sees things that doesn't work and he makes those adjustments. So that's kind of what my rant was about last week. I think I don't blame you guys because obviously you don't watch as much Illinois sports as I do. But for me, it's just like, Daddy Brad, like he's commonly known as. Everyone kind of talks about him being angry and not fun, to hang out with. But I think, in my opinion, he's a top 10, 12 coach in the country, higher than that when it comes to program building. And outside last year, none of the players have really had an issue with Brad Underwood. He's never gotten in trouble. He's never, it's one of those that not all coaches need to be cookie cutter, clean and smiley and this and that. It's okay to have a variety in college sports. And as long as he doesn't go over the limit or over the line, there's nothing wrong with bringing a little personality and, some difference. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that rant last week.
No, I think you make good points.
Thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.